Okay, so let's move on to lesson 11. As I mentioned, those content are from the second half of lesson 10. I just move it over, become 11. So anyone has used a Unix system or like a bash line, command line system? No one?
A
Command
little bit.
yeah, Linux, yeah, right.
Yeah, I use
Little,
Linux.
Okay,
little bit the bash command system.
yeah. So in the bash, what you do is or command line, you type the command first, right? For example, print, then you have a space, then you put arguments afterwards. All right. So there's no UI, everything is in string, they're separated by space, right? So in Unix, all those commands are made in C. So that means we're making a C code and we compile it, we make it as an executable file, it become a command. All right, so previously all the function we made are require user to enter information after you run the function. But there's a difference in system like bash or command line, you put argument along with the function name, right? So those are different. Like the first case, before we run our code, then the screen will ask for us input, then we type input one and another, and then it will do the process, right? This time we will call the function along with all the inputs together, all right? So this is what it means by command line argument. Okay, so this command line argument, you don't have my, are you joining the class? I sent an email with the online class, so yeah. Yeah, so this is the command line argument do. So when you compile your program into executable, you can run it along with a few arguments. All right, so this will essentially make all those commands in a Unix system. So this example we saw last time, if let's say we have a simple command which is only repeat the input. So we have echo with two argument, command line argument, right? And this, our code will read those command line and output them as it is, right? The very simple way. How you access them is using those two variable. First is argument count, which is how many arguments you receive. Second is the argument value. Know that the first value will always be ignored because that is your command name itself. You only start from the second moving forward. All right, so that means your argument count should at least be 1, right? All right, so this is the first version of the echo function where we read the input value and we using index value I to go through every argument value in the argument array. By the way, this is here we are using what is called a pointer array, right? Like this has a list of pointer, right? So this is very suitable, as we mentioned. Instead of using 2D array, right? We're using this pointer array because we could have multiple pointer, and every pointer are pointing at strings with different lengths. So that's the advantage of using pointer array rather than a 2D array, right? Because every argument we put into could have various lengths, right? Could have 6 or could have 5, whatever length it is. So here we are accessing those value one by one using the I index. So every time we read this one, we just simply just print it out. In addition, we will add a character, either is a space or new line. New line is only happen when we reaching the last argument. So this is a shorthand if statements. By the way, like we have this question in our midterm, and I saw a few people who cannot figure it out. That's the part like you didn't learn before, right? So that's obviously I have to ask you in our exams. So this is the first version. The second version, we want to make it more simpler, because instead of using an additional variable I to tracking our argument value, we could simply just using those two things. So first is minus argument count, right? So that will control how many times you will run your while loop, just based on how many arguments you have. So that makes sense. Secondly, you will use this plus argument value to move your pointer to the next one every time as well. So this makes things very convenient, so you don't have to track additional I things. You can just go through everything. So this almost could be a universal way if you want to go through all your arguments, right? So last version is we combine this terminator value. We have to append the space or the new line at the end before. Now we have them as a part of our if statement. So if as long as it's not the last number, we will append this M space, otherwise it will be the new line. All right, so again, those are we are done before, but I'm pretty sure you'll forget about it. All right, so let's look at this example. So what do we want to do in here is we want to create a function. It's called pattern finder. All right, or it's a different name. It's called grep, grep, which will find the pattern from a text. Okay, I will give you some example. Let's see some example here. For example, so here's the input text, right? It's this 4 lines, and we could ignore those two things in the middle first. Okay, let's just ignore them. Let's say if we use command find space the, that's it. Okay, ignore those two in the middle. What that will do is it will output a line contain the pattern the the. So this first line, third line, and last line, right? Because this has the inside as well. All right, so this is what this function do. So it will let you input arguments, and it will find the lines matches those pattern. All right. Again, for this example, will be the. It will output line 1, 3, and 4. Okay. Then we want to make it more robust for a different purpose. So we have additional argument called /x. What the /x do is it will do the reverse. So it will only output those things doesn't contain your pattern. So that will be the second line. All right, that's the x do. Then the /n, what that do is it will output the number in front of the line. So that's the second line. So that's essentially those two arguments will do. So this again give your function a lot of flexibility, right? So the user could tell you, oh, I want to use your function this way or that way just by using different arguments. But that also make our function be more complicated because we have to identify those special arguments and process them accordingly. Okay, so let's see how we can do it. So ignore the initial part. yet. First, we will talk about that later. So to the main function, well, by the way, I didn't mention that before, but the main function always have those two as an input, right? One is argument count, and the other is argument array. Then we'll use a for loop. The for loop, the first part of for loop is the same as the echo one, right? We just reduce the number of count every time. But the second part is we always want to make sure that the arguments start with the minus sign, right? This is how we differentiate this additional argument with the pattern we're looking for. Okay, so it has to meet both conditions. Okay, to check if it begins with the minus sign, this is one way we can do it. It's like a star and argument pointer. Okay, the plus is just move past the first argument, which is the command itself, right? So then this first 0 is this give you the first character in your argument. So as long as it has starting with minus, then we will have a switch, right? Switch to go check if it's either X or N, right? Otherwise, it's illegal, right? We'll have some error message pops up and terminating it, right? Terminating the command. So in terms of its X, we'll set up an internal flag is accept, right, as 1. Or if it's a flag as N, we'll set up another internal flag as number equal to 1. Okay, we'll use them later to manipulate how we output our line. Okay. So here in the part of how we are going to output the line in the while loop here, so we'll get the user to enter a bunch of lines first, right, until they're reaching the maximum, or they stop. Then what we'll do is we will use our indexing function. We kind of made that before, right? And we was trying to find the pattern. This is the pattern in our input line, right? And see where it is. If it's greater than 0, that means we find it. Otherwise, we didn't find it. So then we will compare it to our accept flag, right? Let's say our accept flag is 1. That means we don't want to find it, right? So that's why we had the reverse symbol here, not equal to 1, right? So, all right. So, yeah. And if this is satisfied, we're going to print out that line. The next if statement is if we're checking the number. If that's the case, before we actually print out the line, we also will print out the line number. All right, so that's the additional thing. So you can see the strategy here is we will first flag all those internal things like accept or number, right, based off the function. Then we'll use them to change how our output will be, right, using a bunch of if statements. All right, so before we move on to our exercise, here are a few things I wanted to make you clear with, so because that's important for you to complete the next exercise. There are a few expressions, it's a little bit confusing to each other. So the first one is the start and this pointer, right? So the start pointer means the value of that pointer. Okay, that's the first thing we learn in lesson 10. So hope that's clear. So now the next one is star pointer, right? This part could be confusing because that essentially means our pointer is actually pointing at a string, and the additional star is pointing at the first character of that string. Okay, again, this is important to remember. All right, so this one, argument plus means we are incrementing this pointer in the array of it, right? So let's say the pointer is pointing at an array of 5 items. This arg v plus plus will give us to the second one, or next one every time we run it, right? At the beginning, it's pointing at, by default, it's pointing at the first item in the array, and every time you run this, it will move it to the next one. Okay, last argument is we have this bracket, all right, around this pointer thing plus plus. So what that will do is it will pointing at the next character inside. All right, this is a pointer array. That means it has an array of strings, and you're pointing at one of the string, and then you move on to the one of the next character, one after. Right. Again, those four things are very confusing. So this bracket, inside bracket has star arguments. Plus plus means you're moving at the character level, right? Without this bracket thing, it's moving at array level, right? And double star as a character level value, right? One star is the array value, level value, all right? Okay, so yeah, if we use them to solve our input argument, so this first one will give us the argument directly. Second one was the first character in the argument. Then if we want to move to the next argument, we use the third one, and the last one is the first character in the next, oh, sorry, next argument, the next character in the argument. All right, okay, just keep that in your mind. Now, please go ahead to do this exercise. Yeah, what we're going to do is, yeah, you should go ahead to read this exercise requirement, and this is the same calculator we saw before, which you push a lot of number into your stack and do some calculation. But this time, instead of letting user to enter it, we enter them as a part of the argument. Okay, I will show you in a little bit how to actually run it. But first of all, I will give you 5 minutes to just understand what this question is about. Okay, please go ahead.